Okay, it looks like we've got some people already logged in, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Builder Partnerships Webinar Wednesday. Our webinar today is today's termite pre-treatment options with Lee Barrett and Reed Ipster. I'm sorry. They have a great presentation with lots of great information. I got to preview it a couple of weeks ago, and I'm really impressed with all the information they have to share with you today. Before we get started, I do want to go over a few housekeeping items. At this point, you guys will all be muted, and we do encourage you to ask questions throughout the presentation. If you look down at the bottom of your screen, you should have two little speech bubbles that say Q&A underneath that. You can go ahead and click on that at any time to ask questions throughout the program. We will likely reserve all questions until the end, but if there's a moment where we have a break, we can try to sneak a question in here and there. You're also welcome to use the chat function to ask me or any of our panelists direct questions. So you can use that, or if you have any issues that need to be addressed pretty quickly. But with that, we will go ahead and get started. If you are watching this as a replay, you can email one of us to get your questions answered as well. So we'll have the email posted to you on the email that goes out tomorrow, thanking you for visiting our webinar today. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Reed and Lee.
All right, thanks, Emma. So my name is Reed. I'm the Director of Technical Services for Nisus Corporation, and I have with me Lee Barrett, who is the Vice President of all sales, international and domestic. My background, after my graduate studies at the University of Georgia, I actually started working for a national pest control company. And through that experience, I was able to experience all of the sort of termite pre-treatment methods. And that was years ago. So obviously some of the technologies have increased and changed and so forth in that time. So I've done the soil termiticide treatments. I've installed the bait stations, and I've done the borate treatment. So that's the main three that I'm going to talk about with you today. For requirement of treatments, HUD usually covers around 10 to 12% for primary new construction treatments for new construction. And the majority, I would say 70% of the regular loans follow that guideline, usually mandated through the mortgage companies. Okay, so really, if you look at this map here, just about, I would say 75 to 80%, maybe even higher, of all the counties in the United States are going to require some sort of primary new construction treatment for subterranean termites. Now, keep in mind that the pressure across this gate, across the United States differs from the Southeast to the Northeast to the Midwest, the Pacific Northwest. But you'd be surprised that you do have the same species, the eastern subterranean termite in Florida, extends all the way into New Mexico. And though they might in size be a little smaller, they still can do just the amount of same damage if given the right amount of time. Okay. So generally speaking, you have there's several groups of termites. Obviously, you have the damp woods, which I've just I wanted to show you a picture of a damp wood soldier, what they look like. You have dry woods, and of course the subterraneans, which are the most important for primary new construction and for houses in general. I think even post construction. The cast is sort of termites. Kind of they look like ants, but they don't act like ants. So what happens is you sort of have, this is a full colony. When you see soldiers and workers, you know the colony is mature. But usually what happens is that a pest control operator, you'll find swarmers, which are reproductives. And so these reproductives sort of swarm in masse, hundreds upon hundreds of thousands by chance. And then, like for this picture right here, these wings will be clipped off, and they'll use their fat resources to find a mate. The females and males actually mate for life. They become married their entire life. Given the right circumstances for living conditions, a female can live up to about 20 to 25 years, and she can, given the optimal environmental conditions, they can lay about maybe 2,000 eggs a day. which has been reported. So if you think about some areas in the Southeast, Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas, particularly those areas where they have some invasive species, you can see how quickly a termite colony will can get and grow. Generally, it takes about 10 years for a termite colony to become fully mature, where the next generation spews out the reproductives. All right. So termites, they prefer decayed wood over sound wood, and I call them like I guess you can say somewhat of a kind of a bad word for it, but they're somewhat of a dirty species in the sense that if you see carpenter ant damage, ants are way cleaner. They groom their environment and clean their environment extremely well as compared to subterranean termites. And what termites will do, they'll tunnel in the wood, and through that tunneling, they'll bring in dirt and debris, which facilitates the decay of the wood, which makes that wood more digestible. So a termite will actually choose to feed on decayed wood more than sound wood. And that sort of decayed wood, as it decays more, they're able to digest it faster, and actually the termites will grow faster and they'll grow bigger. Okay, so through time, this is a great picture of could happen 7 or 8 years to 10 years, where they're just completely decimate wood members and they become structurally unsound. All right. Generally speaking, there's billions of dollars each year that's attributed to termite damage. The last estimate with National Pest Management Association was around 5 billion. I would say it's probably more now, probably 7 billion or so. Florida and the Gulf Coast states and parts of Georgia and the Carolinas and so forth, they have the Formosan termite, but there's actually a new species that's been introduced in Florida as well, and a couple of exotic drywood termite species that have actually been introduced, and they actually travel through rootstock and railroad ties that are used for home use for decorations and so forth. Okay, so we sort of through commerce, we're able to facilitate their travel and their expansion. Now, still to this day, these are the three main pre-treatment options are the soil treatments, the wood treatments, and the bait stations. Now you have some sort of barrier treatments and other sort of variations on the theme, but a lot of those are usually used in conjunction with these three that are listed here. And so these are the three that I'm going to really talk about right now. I would say that when I was in the industry, when I first came to the industry in 2000, after I graduated from Georgia, 2005, 2006, soil treatments were a big part of the market. Borates were kind of gaining momentum, and then bait stations were sort of gaining momentum too, and having and sort of being not just with one manufacturer, but having another manufacturer kind of come into the market and try to compete. So you're starting to see an evolution of all three of these sort of treatments. Now, I'll begin with soil treatments. The length of protection varies depending on which product is used, basically. Now, keep in mind that each label for an EPA registered product has to have a federal, after it passes the federal guidelines, each state has to kind of prove it as well. And there might be some federal guidelines on how to use the product and so forth, but states can also render stricter use patterns or make sure that you have to use this more than once or twice. That is, that if you might have to apply it 2 or 3 times to complete the actual full primary new construction treatment. Okay. The thing about soil treatments is that generally speaking, that once they're in the soil, they kill on contact and produce a really good barrier. But if that grade is disturbed through the construction process, then you have some sort of a gap within that barrier itself. Okay. And because you have, of course, the insecticides or synthetic chemicals, they don't qualify for any type of green points when you use them in a construction process. There's a lot of scheduling conflicts sometimes. I don't say conflicts, but you can sometimes have some scheduling issues with soil termiticides. There's more prep work for the pest control operator to actually conduct a service. And states now are requiring, some states requiring, not only do you have to treat the soil or topsoil once, but also do the grade maybe once or twice. So and of course, you have to wait for all of that sort of to be conducted, well, at least the topsoil before you can actually pour pour the concrete. Then after the concrete's poured, then many states require that final grade to be conducted as well. So the pest operator has to come in and do a final grade around the whole structure of the house before the HUD paperwork is signed and sealed. Okay. Now, termite bait stations. Now, termite bait stations do qualify as a green termite treatment. And generally speaking, though, that the damage repair warranties are usually not issued by the manufacturer themselves. A lot of times what happens is that pest control operator will have their own customized sort of repair warranty that they offer to the customer where that bait station's been installed. The homeowner, the thing about bait stations is that once they're removed from the soil, there's no protection. So as compared to borate treatments and liquid treatments, at least if the homeowner decides not to renew the warranty, you have something there within the immediate moment that will prevent termite intrusion. But with bait stations, it's not the case. Once they're kind of removed, then the protection from termites becomes absent. Okay. And though they don't really provide a continuous barrier like liquid termiticides or a top barrier around the wood like borates. And so what happens is that there are kind of gaps in between. And so you might have, if they're installed properly, which usually most of the vendors that make the bait stations try to train the pest control operators well enough, but sometimes we can have greater gaps than they're supposed to be. And then you can have these sort of wide areas where a termite might not necessarily detect the station and go through between two stations and start hitting the structure. So if you think about it as sort of a football field, a couple football fields, that there's a gap in terms of what a termite views compared to us. Now, termites are blind, but the interesting thing about them is that they can detect the most minute environmental changes in the gradient of where they're around. So if a house is being constructed and say, for example, there's a postponement and then that grade somehow has to be redone, believe it or not, termites around that facility can actually detect that environmental change and it will cause some reaction in their behavior, okay? So some states, this is something about what happens to, particularly with all three of and it's really for all three of the treatments, that some states really will tell you straight up, you're gonna get termites no matter what. And most of these are probably in the Gulf Coast area, Florida, the ones that have Formosan termites. Florida, I would say Florida, Louisiana, and South Carolina are the three worst states for Formosan termite problems. And they'll tell you if you don't have them, you're going to get them somehow. In South Florida, I'll say Central and South Florida, sometimes you'll see the native subterranean termite, reticular Termites flavipes, be just as voracious as the Formosan. Okay. Around MPMA has kind of given a statistic that in terms of warranty renewal within the first year, usually it's about a 70%. As far as homeowners deciding to keep their warranty. And then after that, it kind of degrades a little bit lower to around 50 or 40%. But if you think about it, out of 100 homes in a certain area that's been built, you're probably going to get about 30% that will eventually have some sort of termite activity, maybe regardless of what termite pre-treatment they've actually come across. But particularly if you have sometimes baits and they get pulled out, you're going to get like a 30% chance and so forth. Then you have the wood treatments. Now, the wood treatments are, remember, they're topical. So borates, Boracare, our product with Nisus Corporation, is not a soil termiticide. And borates move through the moisture gradient of the wood. And so what's great about Boracare is that when you apply it to the wood, because of the glycols, if a termite decides to tube over it, the glycols will move into the termite tube and will prevent the termite tube from being tubed anymore, and so the termites will just stop tubing. Even in some of the heavier infested areas in South Florida and Georgia and the Carolinas and Texas, you'll find that sometimes you'll go to a house, you might see a tube start after about 6 inches, it stops, okay? Now, some states, there's only one particular state you see dye right here in this picture. Only one state, from what I understand, 1 or 2 states require dye to be used. You don't necessarily need dye to be used. It's just If you want to use it, you can. It's just a marker for the pest control operator to know where he's spraying, but it's not mandatory for the majority of the states. All right. Once applied, Boracare kind of stays in the wood, and it remains in the wood. It doesn't volatilize or degrade, unless, of course, there's some sort of conducive condition that there's flooding and so forth. They'll pull the borates out. But generally speaking, it stays in the wood. And it doesn't require an expensive retreatment. That is, with some of the other, particularly soil termiticides, and sometimes with the baits, sometimes you have to do a spot treatment. And if you think about the amount of material that needs to be used, whether it's the side of a house or if it's a garage or so forth, borates kind of are cost effective with that regards. And you can use borates as a continuous burial, not just from the 2 feet up, but from the sill plate, but you can spray the whole house too. And we'll talk a little bit later about how we have certain programs for that as well for some of our warranties. It does qualify as a green treatment, and Boracare, the active ingredient in Boracare is an organic sort of mineral salt. So if by chance some of it gets into the soil, whatever, it just kind of breaks down to its kind of isomers of boron. We do offer a 30-year termite damage repair limited warranty to the pest management professional. So it doesn't go to the homeowner, it goes to the PMP. And then if there's an issue with that house where Boracare has been applied, we work with the pest management professional to do the repair and stuff like that. And then we offer a cash warranty, and we actually give them a new product for retreatment. Okay. So this is our damage repair warranty. So the process for a damage repair warranty is that you basically have to, whoever's going to do the treatment needs to actually be certified, or be a licensed technician under somebody who's certified. And they go through our internal training program, and they'll register their names and their license number and the company's number. And what happens is every house that they treat will be registered online. And then after that, the termite company has to consistently show that they've done a warranty renewal, a new inspection every year, an annual inspection, and register that inspection online as well. So in case something happens, we can go back and look at the history and say, okay, company A, they did a Boracare treatment 8 years later, and they've done all these annual inspections, and somehow there's an issue, and we can track that back, and then we can work with them and so forth and so forth. And that's how kind of our limited sort of 30-year warranty works. It covers termites. So our 30-year damage warranty covers termites, covers wood decay fungi. And here's another thing too about Boracare, is that it prevents wood from rotting as well. Some things would happen to termite. If termites get into a piece of wood and you just say do a liquid treatment to kill termites and so forth, and you don't treat the wood with a borate, the termites will rot out, and they'll start to rot, and then they'll cause decay of the wood and all of that stuff. So there's a chain reaction that is that I always, when I travel and talk about not just termites, but beetles and other WDO, that if wood's really not treated with a borate and you have a WDO attack, it can lead to something else. Okay, and so that's what's really great about borates. When it's in the wood, it prevents not only the termites, but carpenter ants, wood-boring beetles, and fungi as well. And there's really no additional cost to the builder or the homeowner too. I mean, once it's in the wood, it stays in the wood. So once that house transfers, say the homeowner lives for 2 years, 3 years, and they sell the house and move somewhere else, that borate treatment's still in the house. Whereas if you have a liquid treatment, it might be in the soil for 7 to 10 years or whatever, but the base will probably be removed if they don't transfer it, and that house is unprotected. And so at least with borates, you know that the house is protected consistently. Okay. Find out that the average mortgage is around 30 years, right? 25, 30 years. I think even if you put down 20%, usually people keep it at the 30-year mark at the very beginning. So that sort of we've kind of matched our 30-year limited warranty to that average mortgage sort of length time. And it's one of those things where we think that our warranty started, I believe, and Lee will tell me, Lee can top in 5 or 7 years and 12, and then 25 and 30? Is that kind of how it evolved into?
It actually started off with 5 years, and then we sat down with marketing, trying to figure out what we can actually do to for lack of a better word, just make sure we can, with some homeowners who were going to stay in their homes for 30 years. So we suggested that we weren't really getting any issues or problems with the actual treatment. So we thought, hey, why not offer exactly what a mortgage is going to do and offer the 30-year, and that's where that whole 30-year kind of came in. And we as a unit, the sales unit, we really didn't push that as much, but we thought as we started getting these builder partnership situations to get out there and let the builders know that we were going to back our product in such a way that we would give a 30-year warranty, just as mortgagees would do for loans. So the sales team does a phenomenal job trying to get that type of information out. Our marketing team does a great job putting that information out. And I think sometimes when homeowners, especially brand new home, hear such a thing, they say, hey, well, why not do it if they're going to back up and use a product like a Bore Care product that can use on wood treatments, that they're going to back it for 30 years.
Very good. So some of the benefits of Bore Care is that, as I said before, it stays in the wood, doesn't volatilize or degrade. And so you kind of have this, as far as that life of that wood member. And it obviously, as I said, it protects against termites and wood rot as well. And if they don't even renew the warranty from the PNP, they can eventually still have control. I mean, still have protection. And if they move, that house is still protected. All right. And as Lee said, we stand by our work. I mean, we go out in the field and we work with a lot of these pest control operators that actually apply our product. We have a lot of videos for training. All the sales market specialists go out in the field and do training with Bore Care. So, and if there's any issues in the field, I go out there many times. I travel nationally. Lee does as well. So we have a kind of a tight-knit community that if there's an issue, we're there, to fix it. So,
yeah, as Reed said, we have the opportunity with our sales force that's out there. They are on demand, and they can train, they can teach, they can do applications, they can talk to superintendents, they can talk to the homeowner, just to clarify exactly what's going on and how that warranty can be used and how we actually stand behind it. So we try to make sure that we are stewards of our product, that everybody understands that we make sure that you understand what the product can do, how it's done, how it's mixed, what's the benefits of it. And we kind of understand that, hey, listen, if the termites stay in the ground, let them stay in the ground. But if they go after your wood, you're protected with Bore Care. And again, I talk about our sales team. I talk about our technical team, our marketing team. They do a phenomenal job getting out there and understanding and letting everyone know and stewarding our products. And I think that's a testimonial to what and where Bore Care is at today.
So we also have a whole house treatment program, and you can also use Bore Care. For primary new construction, you have to mix it at a 1-to-1 ratio for 2 feet up from the sill plate. But after that, you can mix it at a lower ratio, down to a 5-to-1, which is about a 9% loading level, where you can kind of spray the rest of the house, so to speak. And that we have a program. We do give a warranty for that if the whole house is treated like that within the primary new construction phase. Okay. You find a lot of too that, and this sort of whole house treatment actually protects against fungi issues, and a lot of fungi issues occur in a lot of houses, and particularly houses that are delayed and there's a lot of standing water and so forth. So we do have a product with with a moldicide called Bore Care with Mold Care that you can use in conjunction with Bore Care that will actually take care of growing mold on wood as well. So it's good value to the customer, good value to the builder, and really good value to the pest company as well, because they cover all the gamuts when using both those products in conjunction with each other. You have, for whole house treatments and so forth, eaves, soffits, things like that can be treated with Bore Care with Mold Care, and you'll sort of prevent the mold and the fungi growth as well. fungi it's a very interesting organism. In very dry climates, if you have a climate where it's wet and dry, they'll sort of disappear. And then it rains again, they reappear, but they reappear a little bit larger. And then it goes through a dry spell and they kind of disappear. And then it rains again, they reappear, right? So after a while, all of a sudden, your little soffit, it goes from 6 inches to a foot to 2 feet. All of a sudden, you have your whole soffit that's decaying, and then it brings in carpenter ants and other issues. So doing a whole house treatment actually prevents that from happening, okay? And really, if you look at the most expensive item in a house, it's the wood. I think the demand for wood now is increased. And I do a lot of talks on wood treatments not just for termites, for beetles and so forth, and for carpenter ants. And you see a lot of demand for sugar pine and hemlock and Douglas fir from the west coming over the east, and the west wants longleaf pine and shortleaf pine and things like that. So the demand for wood's greater, and I think that we feel that borer care is ideal to protect that most expensive part of the new home. All right, Emma, that's about, I told you we had only about 25 slides and probably more room for questions than needed, but that's all we have for right now. If there's anything, open to questions.
Thank you guys so much. We do have the floor open for questions, and since we have a smaller group, I can allow you guys to instead of type in your answers, if you want to just raise your hand, I can allow you to talk, so you can ask your question directly to Lee and Reed. It was a great presentation. Nisus has been a member of Builder Partnerships for years and years, and they are a great partner and have worked alongside us for many years. So we're very excited to have hosted them today for their webinar. I think you guys covered a lot of great information. It's interesting to hear about the product working not only to keep pests out, but also to keep the wood safe. So with that, does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask?
I got two.
Go, Chuck.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned that the annual inspection. And you've got the 30-year warranty, but you need to have the annual inspection. Is that an annual fee to the homeowner? And how many of the homeowners don't follow through and have the inspections being done?
Right. So usually, Chuck, there is usually the pest control operator usually has an annual fee, and it depends on if they're, it depends on the different markets, but they'll usually choose a fee, sort of different region, and roughly it could be from $100 to $200 depending on what region they're in. Okay. And then I'm sorry, what your second question was?
Oh, the other thing is we were working with a builder down in Tampa.
Okay.
Who was doing townhouses. And they didn't get the roofs on forever. I mean, it was like they were exposed to the weather for like 9 months.
Okay.
And when we went in to do the inspection and the audit for the builder, those townhouses were green.
Okay.
From the mold. Should they have contacted you? I don't know what they did. I think they just covered it up. I wouldn't live in one of those houses. I mean, my consultants got sick just walking the house.
So So usually what happens is you'll find, so inspectors usually will, inspect. They should look for all sorts of WO, not just termites. But if you have, generally speaking, when you have construction, the attics will probably get some sort of mold, but it's so hot that the mold will die in the attic. And Lee and I were actually at a house here outside of Knoxville. It was a large custom-built house along the Tennessee River, and they had sort of started to have decay coming from the bottom up. I mean, it was not just mold, but they started to have white rot decay, and we recommended that you replace that wood, and they did. So after a while, they need to replace it. It's generally, you're supposed to really apply borer care when the roof is on the house. So now borates will slowly wash out of the wood. That is, that if you apply, a borer care is applied in a piece of wood and it rains and it's out there for a couple of weeks, it's probably not going to damage it too much. But if it's in a piece of wood and that house is flooding from the rain because the roof's not on, it's on the dried in phase, and it's in standing water, those borates will wash out and they'll have to be reapplied.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, but to answer your question about the mold and so forth, that if that is like, I would say states now and state inspectors and so forth are starting to kind of look at that as it's not just termites. 20 years ago it was just termites. Now it's more so than that. It's more than just that.
Yeah, they had 3 buildings that were that way.
Okay.
And I don't know, I don't think they remediated at all. I think they just drywalled.
Yeah, that's not good.
No. I mean, they're going to be unhealthy buildings forever.
Now you could spray boar care with mold care on those, and that would kill the mold on contact. It wouldn't change the color of the mold, but it would kill it on contact, prevent it from growing. And that would be the way to remediate it. We recommend don't use bleach on wood. It decays the wood, it breaks down the ligands and so forth. So bleach is bad on wood. And actually,
Well, that's an interesting comment, because that is typically recommended for builders to go in and bleach it if you've got the mold.
No, bleach is bad for wood, real bad for wood. And we do have a moldicide. We have a moldicide called DSV that you can use directly on the wood. But the problem with bleach is bleach doesn't get into the root system of the mold. Mold doesn't decay. Mold isn't a decay fungi. What it is it's a surface fungi. And so what it will do is it kind of it sort of embeds into the wood in such a way where the bleach can't kill the root structure, the hyphae of the mold. Okay. And a lot of builders are doing whole house treatments to protect wood before spray foam insulation as well. So a lot of times you have an issue where you might have spray foam insulation sprayed, and it causes actually a sort of a moisture problem between the wood and the spray foam. It's not done properly, and mold can kind of locks it in. And a lot of builders are doing whole house treatments to protect that wood as well. So and boar care and mold care kind of prevents that from happening.
I hate to get you off the main subject of termites, but the other thing that you hear from builders, especially in the Southeast, that end up with mold is it's just on the surface, and all you need to do is wipe it off. It hasn't penetrated the wood.
So
how much truth is to that?
Yeah, so mold is a surface fungi. It doesn't necessarily penetrate the wood like you say a decay fungi does. It's a surface fungi. It stays on the wood, and you just can't really wipe it off because the hyphae, its root system, is actually somewhat slightly embedded in the subcuticular layers, and it'll stay there and then regrow. So you have to do a proper moldicide treatment to fully kill the actual mold organism. You can't just wipe it off with a warm cloth or something like that and get rid of it. The hyphae are probably still in the wood.
Well, the reason I bring a lot of this stuff up is because mold has been a big issue, and there's been a lot of legal action against builders on mold, and it's everywhere, and they get such bad information coming back from the industry on what to do with it.
Well, yeah, it's probably cropped up in the last 5 years. It's got more serious than I would say than it has in the last 20 years because of just the way that, overall practices and building practices and just how things are done these days. So, and actually state inspectors are more curious. They're just not focusing on, and neither are the mortgage companies, neither is HUD. So it's just everybody's eyes are on more than just the termite.
Well, you have the problem with the lick and stick stone and the artificial stucco, where they was rotting out complete houses because they were trapping the moisture in the cavity.
Right, that's right. That can happen.
So, all right, MJ, I'm done. You got other questions coming through?
I don't have any other questions coming through. So it looks like Reed and Lee did a pretty amazing job sharing all the information about Nisus and the Boracare. So
I got one more.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, my wife comes from Panama. They have flying termites that eat pianos and so forth. Is that the Formosan termite, or is that a different termite that we don't have here?
It could be, who knows what it could be. I mean, it's a flying, so termite, anything that's flying is a reproductive that's not going to consume just yet. So you'll have, what happens is, Chuck, is you have males and females, and then they'll clip their wings and they'll kind of mate and they'll start a nest. So what you're seeing flying is probably reproductives. You see a bunch of reproductives, there's an active nest somewhere in the piano. Okay.
Oh,
Or-
the piano is totally gone. I mean, all you got is the varnished surface, but there's nothing left of the piano.
Yeah, and it very well could be for most in termite is probably ubiquitous now, you know, across at least the tropical area. So if it's in Florida, it's going to be in Panama and Costa Rica and Venezuela and Nicaragua and all those areas without a doubt. Oh yeah.
Okay. Okay, I appreciate it. I just, it's answered a lot of questions.
All right, very good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much. We really appreciate the time you spent with us this morning. We will have the video up on our website at builderpartnerships.com/events/hashtag webinars. And you can watch this and many other recordings and sign up for future webinars. And I want to thank Lee and Reed very much for being with us today. You guys did a great job and shared some very valuable information. And we look forward to continuing our relationship with Nisus for years to come. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you for the opportunity.
welcome.
Appreciate it. Thank you.